Am I the a-hole for not planning anything for Father's Day after my husband ruined my first Mother's Day? I'm 98.7% sure that I am not the a-hole here, but if I'm wrong, I'm willing to admit it and learn from my mistakes. Our little boy will be one late this summer, so this was the first Mother's Day and Father's Day for both me and my husband. My husband asked what I wanted for Mother's Day. I didn't want or need anything big or expensive. What I asked for was 1. For my husband to get up with the little guy and get him fed while I pumped and relaxed. 2. Breakfast in bed, just toast, scrambled eggs, and coffee. 3. For us to take the little guy to the zoo for the first time. This was the main thing I was looking forward to. 4. Go to my favorite taco place for dinner. Between morning and afternoon naps, we have about 4 hours of awake time. The zoo is about 30 minutes away, so I figured if we left as soon as he got up from his nap and ate, we'd have a couple of hours at the zoo, and worst case, he could sleep in the car on the way home. We took my mom and my mother-in-law out to brunch the prior weekend to celebrate them, his mom on Saturday and my mom on Sunday. I also got them each a thoughtful little present and flowers to celebrate their first Mother's Day as grandmothers. I arranged everything and told my mom and mother-in-law that we'd be celebrating on the actual day with just our little family. I sent them a group chat, which included my husband, my dad, and father-in-law, just to make sure everyone was on the same page. My mother-in-law is very pushy and overbearing, so I didn't want there to be any surprises or confusion. The Saturday before Mother's Day, father-in-law sent my husband a text with a picture of all the mulch he just had delivered and said something like, "Gonna be a busy weekend," or something like that. Apparently, he had 300 bags of mulch. They have a big yard with lots of flower beds. That night, my mother-in-law called my husband and asked him to come over first thing in the morning to help his dad move the bags of mulch to where they were going to be used. She said since we weren't going to the zoo until after the little guy's nap, my husband could go over and help for a couple of hours and then come pick us up to go to the zoo. I was obviously not happy, but she guilted him and said father-in-law was going to end up hurting himself if he moved all that by himself, and that it wasn't a big deal and should only take an hour or two. I told him his mom was doing this to try and get us to skip our plans and spend the day with them, but he kept saying it wasn't a big deal, that his mom promised it would only take a couple of hours, etc. I think most people can guess what happened. My husband went over first thing, which meant no breakfast in bed, and I had to get up to feed the little guy. I was kinda mad, but whatever. I spent time with the little guy. Then when he went down for his morning nap, I texted my husband to let him know he should start wrapping things up. Then, when the little guy woke up 2 hours later, I called my husband to tell him I'd be ready to go as soon as I finished feeding the little guy. He told me it was taking longer than he expected, but that he'd hurry. Like an hour and a half later, my husband called and said they weren't done, but he was getting ready to come home. It's a 15 to 20-minute drive from the in-laws' house. At that point, we'd missed the window to make it to the zoo, so I told him to just stay there and finish and not worry about Mother's Day, since he hadn't done a single thing I asked for. I don't think there was any doubt in his mind how mad I was. A little later, his mom called and said since we decided not to go to the zoo, that me and the little guy should go hang out with her while the boys finished with the mulch. I admit that I was pretty pissy and told her I had no interest in spending time with the people who decided to ruin my first Mother's Day. I ended up staying home, ordering a pizza, and binging Netflix. When my husband got home, he was all apologetic and asked how he could make it up to me. I was still mad and told him he could make it up by not ruining my first Mother's Day. I also told him he should plan on spending Father's Day with his mom and dad because me and the little guy were going to go celebrate Father's Day with my mom and dad. Since Mother's Day, mother-in-law has been texting and calling, but I've been keeping conversations short and just giving very bland generic responses. My husband has been apologizing and asking what he can do, but honestly, I don't want to bother. I know it's just a day and we can celebrate anytime, like we did with my mom and mother-in-law. But it was my first ever Mother's Day, and it's not like I ask for anything expensive or difficult. The only difficult thing is he's incapable of setting boundaries with his mom, and she's incapable of considering anyone's feelings but her own. This past Saturday, he asked if I was still going to my parents', then said he'd like to go with us. I told him he could do whatever he wanted, but since I hadn't done anything for his dad, he might want to go see him or something. We did both end up going to my parents and spending the day with them. It was actually a nice day. My dad insisted on grilling, because of course he did, but the weather ended up being nice and we spent a lot of time hanging out on their deck playing with the little guy. I'm not sure what, if anything, my husband did for his dad. I know he was getting a lot of texts during the day, I assume from his mom. She did send me a snippy text saying it was hurtful to spend the day with my family at the expense of my husband's, but I told her she got to spend Mother's Day with her baby boy, so it's only fair that I spend Father's Day with my family. I know my husband was hurt that we didn't acknowledge him for Father's Day, but I told him while we were driving to my parents' house that I'm just matching his energy. I admit that I haven't done anything to de-escalate the drama, but I'm still just so hurt that he continues to prioritize his mom's feelings over our little family. This isn't the first time his mom has done crap like this, and I'm just so tired of it. She always oversteps and insists on doing what she wants. I'm doing better at keeping her at arm's length and holding my own boundaries, but my husband is absolutely incapable of it. Not the a-hole. Although, you knew your husband wasn't going to make it by the time your son woke up. Why didn't you just take your son and enjoy the zoo? I really should have. I think I was trying to convince myself he'd come through for us. Lesson learned. Your husband has clearly decided having a pissed-off wife is preferable to having a pissed-off mother. The very first time he knew his dad had bought 300 bags of mulch, does he own Rhode Island or something? Your husband should have said, "Wish I could help you, but we have plans for Mother's Day." When his mom said it'd only take an hour or two, he should have responded, "Our plans are all day. The mulch could have waited." This should be the top comment. The second they tried to ask him for help, he should have said another weekend. Not the a-hole. All you did was match his energy. I think that's what's great about Mother's Day coming first. Not the a-hole. Look at the shiny spine on you. Your husband should take notes. You're a badass, and I wish I had your spunk. Ask him why he'd rather be a good son than a good father. When is his child going to matter more than his mommy's fifis? I'm proud you're not letting her get away with her nonsense. What about Christmas? Birthdays? So far, it's been a lot of the same. Technically, we've tried to alternate holidays or celebrate with one of our families on a different day, but his mom calls and texts nonstop if we spend a holiday with my family. I already told him this Christmas we are spending Christmas Day at home, just the three of us. That should be interesting to see what tricks mother-in-law pulls out. Please show these comments to the mama's boy you married. He needs to man up. He needs to drop hard boundaries with his mommy. This needs to be a serious wake-up call. Nothing Mommy Dearest says should be taken at face value. She is malicious and manipulating. You likely need therapy to address this. Your husband has been under her thumb a long time and needs help to get out. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to cut my hair for my boyfriend's mom's birthday dinner? So I'm 23 female dating this guy, 25 male for about a year now. Let's call him Jake. Jake's family is, well, let's just say they still think it's 1954, and everyone's supposed to dress like they're going to meet the Queen every Sunday. Anyway, Jake's mom is turning 60, and his family planned this big fancy dinner at one of those places where the menu doesn't have prices and the portions look like decoration. Cool, I can play along. But a week before the dinner, Jake casually says, "Hey, my mom asked if you could do something more elegant with your hair for the dinner. Maybe like get a trim or put it up or something less wild." I was like, what? First of all, I have curly hair, like actual curls, not the kind you get from a curling iron. I love my hair. It's big, it's dramatic, it's me. I haven't cut it in over a year because I'm growing it out, and it's finally hitting that glorious lion mane stage. I ask, what exactly did she say? And Jake goes, "She said you're beautiful. She just thinks you'd look more put together with a sleeker style. Like, more presentable." Y'all, presentable. For who? The Queen? The soup that costs $50? I told him nicely, "Look, I'll dress up. I'll wear the heels that make me walk like a baby deer on ice. I'll even avoid cussing for one night. but I'm not cutting my hair because your mom thinks I'm too fluffy." Jake got quiet and then said I was making a big deal out of nothing. And why can't I just compromise to make a good impression? Not the a-hole. Stand your ground and wear your hair any way you want. If this exposes huge red flags in your relationship, so be it. He needs to 1. Be proud of you no matter your hairstyle, and 2. Defend you to his mom. Thank you. That really means a lot. I was starting to feel like maybe I was being dramatic, but yeah, I want someone who actually likes me as is, not just when I'm toned down to fit some outdated idea of what looks proper. If my hair is the deal breaker, then maybe it's not just about the hair, you know. And it will never end. She'll always have a reason that you should tone it down. And the boyfriend? Why is he with you if he wants to change you? Red flag time. Cut, not your hair, and run. But not in heels. Haha, I literally laughed at this. You're right though, I'm definitely not trimming myself down to fit someone else's aesthetic. Might just sprint out of there in socks, heels in hand like Cinderella at 11:59. Tell him to tell his mom not to make a big deal about your hair. Why do you have to not make it a big deal? Last story. Am I the a-hole for cutting off all communication with my in-laws after my 6-year-old died? I, 35 female, am married to Ben, 40 male for 12 years. We have 2 children together. My daughter, 4 at the time, was discovered to have a tumor in her abdomen after experiencing 14 months of intermittent leg pain. The doctors couldn't find the source of the pain until they found the tumor. We were scared for our daughter. I was so afraid. I shut everyone out except my mom and husband. My mom drove 8 hours to support us while they went through the diagnostic process. My husband asked his parents to come to support him. They said no because they had to watch sister-in-law's kids. For context, my in-laws live 5 hours away and sister-in-law lived 25 minutes from me. At this time, doctors believed the tumor was benign, so they scheduled the resection surgery for 2 months later. All summer, the in-laws couldn't see our kids because they were always watching sister-in-law's kids since their dad wasn't pulling his weight. Finally, the surgery date came. My mom came again to support us through this huge surgery. The tumor was so large that it took up all of the free space on the right side of her abdomen. The doctor came out of surgery and he told us that he could only remove 60% of the tumor. He believed it looked cancerous, but we had to wait for the pathology report. A few days later, it came back positive for cancer and my daughter had to go through a very intensive treatment plan. She needed 5 rounds of chemo, 2 stem cell rescues, and 6 rounds of immunotherapy. My kids were always close to their grandparents. It was hard when we had to isolate ourselves to protect my daughter from getting sick during treatment. She had a central line and all fevers were an automatic trip to the emergency room. My mother-in-law offered to help us once, but she backed out because she couldn't handle wearing a mask for 8 hours while we worked. In efforts to protect my daughter, we ask that when they come to visit, that they only see my kids to prevent sister-in-law's kids from giving grandma and grandpa a virus that they brought back to my daughter. All throughout treatment, my daughter cried that she missed grandma. They decided that if they couldn't see both sets of grandkids, then they didn't want to come. We tried to compromise and asked them to split their visit. First couple days with my sick child, and then the last days of their stay to be at my sister-in-law's house. They just chose to stay away instead. During the stem cell rescues, we had to isolate my daughter since they literally fried her bone marrow with chemo. She didn't have an immune system for a few weeks, so it was important to protect her. It was limited to my mom and I throughout the 2 stem cell rescues and transplants. When my daughter finally was able to be around people again, they still didn't come around. My daughter was fine for a few months, but she started having leg pain again. I feared the cancer was back. In November, they found the cancer and it spread everywhere. She was in so much pain. She just wanted to be with family and see her grandma. Grandma only came when her sister wanted to meet my daughter. They saw her for a few days after Christmas. My daughter was rapidly deteriorating and she was in so much pain. The ICU doctor told me my daughter was going to pass away and to let family know. I called all those closest to my daughter to say goodbye. They didn't come. My daughter passed away in January. She fought so hard, but she couldn't beat the cancer. I am hurt and angry with them because they hurt my daughter. She may not have realized that Grandma and Grandpa were not prioritizing their sick grandchild, but I did. She cried so much about missing Grandma. They knew she was sick, and she had a high probability of not surviving this. Now, 5 months after my daughter's death, my husband wants me to ignore all of that has happened for him and my son. He tried to talk to his parents, but they just got defensive. He wants me to not address any of this with them, so I have chosen to cut them out of my life every way I can. They are not welcome in my home anymore. I will not interfere with the relationship that my husband or son have with them, but I will not do anything to foster it. That's my husband's responsibility to do that. Now my husband is angry with me and feels that I'm being unreasonable. So am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. So sorry for your loss, OP. Did your in-laws attend her funeral service? What was that like? They did attend. They also tried to justify when my sister-in-law wanted to talk to me about my daughter's life insurance policy on her deathbed. She sold us the policy for context. The whole family seems to be a-holes. What horrible people. Don't ever give in. It's better to divorce than to be forced to speak with them. But I hope your husband comes to his senses. They weren't like this before my daughter was sick. My sister-in-law has always been an airhead, though. Unbelievable. Did they ever apologize for not seeing her? If they did, it wasn't to me. From what my husband has told me, they don't see any wrongdoing. They took offense when he tried to address it, which was already hard for my husband to do. He avoids conflict as much as he can. They responded, "Wow, nothing we do is enough for you guys." Instead of taking ownership, whether it was intentional or unintentional, they flipped it on him. Honestly, my heart hurt for my husband when this happened. Did you cut your sister-in-law off for asking? There was no excuse to discuss the life insurance of a dying child on their deathbed. I haven't spoken to her since my daughter passed. I'd like to think it came out like word vomit. Thoughtless and awkward, but without ill intent. But I've had enough of that behavior over the past decade with her. At some point, I feel like I'm just making an excuse for her and she's just not worth the time or energy.